right?
Yeah.
Well, do you think that's a viable way for them to go down? Like, NVIDIA has a mining, it's like right now you got the enterprise and the gaming. What if they had a third tier and it was for mining, and it's specifically meant for that, and it feeds their purposes, but it also doesn't interfere with the gamers? Maybe everyone wins.
I'd love it. I'd love it if they could figure out a way to do it. I think it has to be baked into the hardware, so we're gonna have to see. It could be so many different things. I would really hope that we get an actual gaming GPU for out of them soon. Because like I've said, I think a couple of these before, those G-Sync HDR panels are coming out this quarter theoretically, and the cards that we have now can't power it. So hopefully we see a 280 Ti or whatever.
I do. I mean, what would happen if if they came out with a mining? I mean, because they have the resources, if they did a specific mining GPU, would they charge more for it? I mean, because the whole idea is to stop screwing with the PC gaming side.
I mean, I think that depends on its performance. If they can promise like X amount of performance or longevity or something to make it like actually targeted at miners, then I could see them being able to like kind of section that off with a higher premium. But if there's no real difference, then I don't know if that's going to, one, solve anything in terms of crisis, and two, do anything other than just annoy people.
Do you do you think they could do? I mean, like this mining. So if you had a mining GPU, would they specifically make it bad for gaming? Then I mean, would they like just
How
laser
would you
cut?
do that though?
Well,
I think it'd be the other way around.
Yeah.
I think that they would put things in gaming GPUs to make them specifically bad for mining.
Mm.
Yeah. And they'd be fused off though. I mean, this is something you couldn't bring back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you specifically have to be a gaming GPU that is bad for mining, or it could be mediocre for mining, but then they would have a mining GPU that's great for mining, but it's fused off from gaming so that gamers don't then try to buy that card. Or I'm just
they could. I would like the idea of that with no display ports, no connections, no outputs. We've already seen some of that. These cryptocurrency specific cards put out this generation. We've seen that from both AMD and NVIDIA partners. So if you put that out with no video connections, maybe lower the price, make it cheaper than you would the equivalent gaming card.
Really?
And flood the market a bit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because
about a bunch of those. Maybe still use Pascal or whatever they have right now. Keep it going.
And
make it cheaper.
I mean, that's what everyone's saying in the chat too. Is that like if it's cheaper and it still works, they'll eat up all the mining ones and the gaming ones. So I think the only way to make that is to say, hey, here are the mining ones and they're cheaper. There's no reason to ever go over there, because they just want the most efficient, cheap thing they can get.
Yeah, I mean, the economics are the big problem here, and I do. So the problem I would think, like, if that mining card was also good at gaming and could be resold into gaming, or if this card could not be resold into gaming, would miners not want to buy it? Because what's great is they go out and they buy a 1060, they drive it hard for 6 months and they put it up on eBay, right? So you basically you make money on the card you already made money on. So you've made a ton of money on mining, and then you take it and you sell it and you make the full cost of the card plus a profit on it. So why would I buy your mining card when I can make 100%, 200% profit on the card when I sell the hardware? So
yeah, it's a big part, especially for the people who are dabbling or not server farms for mining or graphics card farms. That resellability is a big part of the equation. And I think the dedicated mining graphics card that have already been introduced maybe didn't move as well as they were hoping. I think because of that, because a lot of people are like, why would I not just buy a normal 580 and then I can sell that to people when I'm done?
Right.
But if NVIDIA manages to introduce new mining dedicated cards and makes them more optimized for mining and makes it so there's no video outputs, there's no way that can be sold for gaming. So
yeah, I'm just wondering how much of it drives that, like being able to recover the cost from it though. Would miners do it, or couldn't they make the gaming cards just particularly bad at mining, I guess, somehow in hardware intentionally?
I would think so.
I think they would need to do that in order to encourage people to pick up those mining cards.
Yeah.
It would probably change the whole mining scene too. because you'd have probably far fewer casual people just picking it up at that point.
Right.
I think that would make them the hero, wouldn't it? It would make them the hero of the gaming community if they ended up figuring out a way to do this. And if it's into what NVIDIA does, AMD tends to make one graphics card GPU and use it for everything. Whereas NVIDIA has Quadro, it has Tesla, it has the consumer things. Slotting a mining specific variant in there and being able to charge more for that eventually fits right in with what they do, I think.
Right. Yeah, and that could change it. I mean, it could be bad for AMD in some ways because suddenly if everybody rushes over to this mining NVIDIA card, then, well, they stop buying Radeons, and then what happens to Radeons at that point? So
Gamers will buy them once more.
Yeah.
There is a happy ending, Gordon.
I just kind of wonder, like, from the NVIDIA or AMD point of view, if they're like, you know what, all these miners are buying, they're kind of wrecking our gaming, our problem, our relationship with gamers, but we'd rather have them buy our GeForce card than have them buy a Radeon card, frankly, because, I mean, or vice versa. I just kind of wonder if that's something they think about,
Good point.
I don't know.
If they can figure it out, I think it's win-win. Make a badass mining card, miners are happy. Make a badass gaming card, gamers can actually buy, gamers are happy.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
So, but it's entirely possible that we'll see a Turing card, Alan Turing, and possibly a gaming card too, or is Turing actually the gaming card as well? The rumors.
The way Reuters said it was the new gaming GPU codenamed Turing.
Huh.
Really? That's an interesting name, though, for a gaming card, given what he's associated with.
I agree.
I'm surprised. Go ahead.
I'm not sure. Ampere came out, right? That was rumored for a while. But then there was that other stealth chip company that just came out of stealth that calls itself Ampere. I wonder if it was a last-minute change kind of a deal on NVIDIA's part.
Oh.
Because in the past couple of weeks, like Intel's former president came out with a new company called Ampere that makes processors. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a last minute switch of code names because they don't want to use Ampere now that it's associated with this other chip company. But speculation.
Are they running out of super cool mathematicians, cryptologists, or are they just kind of like they can move
It's interesting.
on?
The other ones have been physicists, right?
I think so.
And Turing definitely isn't. So.
Oh, wait. I just got an email. They're also introducing a new celebrity-based codename video cards. The first one is going to be Kardashian.
Kardashian?
Kardashian
like it.
card. And then there's other ones coming up. Other
Do they have their own merch lines, too?
They have a reality TV show.
Nice.
Yeah, you just kind of like, oh, it's so high reaching. It's like, yeah, we're going to go totally lowbrow with this reality TV. It's the Kardashians, keeping up with the Kardashians, our video card. Yes, that's no. Okay.
Keeping up with the Kardashians.
Cannot get him to laugh today.
He's been laughing a lot.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not laughing when I look over TV.
Oh, you're hurting his feelings.
We live for the laughs, or as the kids say, LOL, whatever the heck.
The lols.
All right, last topic. Should we move on?
Yeah, might as well.
Questions? All right. What's the latest on Meltdown? Which is just the never-ending story, except not Disney movie.
So Meltdown and Spectre, the most interesting thing that happened recently is Intel rolled out fixed CPU patches for Skylake systems, CPU firmware updates for Skylake systems. When Meltdown and Spectre first came out, they rolled out a bunch of patches for those, and it turns out the patches were broken and made systems reboot and possibly caused data loss and all kinds of stuff. So they pulled them back and said, hey, we'll work on it. Don't install that in the meantime.
Whoops.
After telling everybody, hey, install this right now. But anyway, the first fixed patches, the second round of patches that hopefully won't bork your system, are starting to come out now. It's for Skylake processors only. There's no other chip generations have gotten these updated patches yet.
Sure, they're going a lot slower this time.
Yeah, they're available now. It's kind of a pain in the butt figuring out how to update if you have a DIY PC. How to get your motherboard BIOS updated. So we actually put a guide up this week about how to go about doing that using third-party software to figure out which motherboard you have and explain how to do that. So there's that. So they're coming. There was also an NVIDIA researcher working with Princeton University researchers, used the same principles behind Meltdown and Spectre to create Meltdown Prime and Spectre Prime, which are different exploits that hit this flaw or design flaw and take advantage of the way that multi-core computer processors talk to each other's cache memory. And it's basically, exploiting this code in a different way, which sounds scary. It sounds very scary. It's not as scary as it sounds because they say that the software updates that are now starting to come out will also protect against these prime attacks. But the architecture changes that Intel and AMD are putting into place in future processors already won't fix these prime attacks. Those will need a separate fix. So this is going to linger in hardware for a while, it sounds like.
Forever. People don't. It is. It's just like buffer overflow attacks. It was like a novel thing when it came along, and then those are still. I mean, people are still finding new ways to do buffer overflow attacks all the time. So,
is there any sense of a timeline for when people with older processors can expect these patches, or any kind of patch?
They're already way behind after that first round of buggy patches, so I don't know if they've done an updated timeline yet.
Although I gotta say though, I when all the news came out, and once it's reported at the national news media level, you sort of lose perspective on everything. But I was in the impression that basically KB Lake and up or Skylake and up, you're okay because that would be supported platforms. Everybody else, into the life raft, we're going to push you away from. Into the iceberg. But I didn't realize it, and Brad apparently knew this, but they are actually supporting older CPUs, right? They're actually going back.
Intel is going to make those fixes in older CPUs. The big question mark is whether motherboard vendors are going to actually bother putting the money into putting out BIOS updates that include those patches. I think that's the real big question mark.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's a PDF on Intel's website. They say they've got plans to go back, just so people know, they're going to have fixes in place at some point, going all the way back to Yorkfield and Penryn, which is Core 2.
Wow.
Yeah, Core 2 quad days, right?
Wow.
So we're talking like ancient old, chips that a lot of people still use. Intel will have them, and as Brad says, good luck getting the motherboard BIOS update, which is the problem, but. Couldn't they get sued? Isn't that opening them up to exposure for, leaving them open?
I bet you that's why Intel is publishing and pushing these fixes to their partners. I bet you it's their lawyers that said, hey, we'll put this out and they can do what they want after the fact.
It's so funny, though, because I know, because that was the first thing that I said. It's like, wow, it seems like there's a lot of liability exposure. Like, if you don't go back and patch this system I bought in 2008, literally, I'm gonna sue you for my data being lost or data breaches. And of course, Intel's going to push these updates out. And it is possible some of these motherboard companies will come out with fixes for them because they don't want to get sued either. But at the same time, I wonder, like, why the hell doesn't this work with Android? Android is like, whatever. I just got this 6 months ago. Yeah, it's obsolete. It's open. There's no security updates for it. But people like Android, it's like, oh, okay. And I use an Android phone, but it's just like you're like used to it and like, okay, nobody even cares. It's just like an accepted fact that you will never get security updates for your phone after 12 months.
Well, I think it's also easier on a phone to avoid doing anything that could be very personal because you have your PC to do your banking or, checking your 401k.
I do all
whatever.
my gaming on my phone and tablet.
Oh, do you now?
I'm just kidding.
Making this that.
Not at all. But I disagree though. I mean, honestly, if you broken like this laptop here, well, you got it. I wouldn't be too worried, but my phone I'd be freaked out about more so than anything.
Yeah, I feel like I have more personal stuff on my phone than.
But I mean,
my
it's a
PC.
choice, right? Like, not everyone has to use their phone to an extremely personal level.
I take all of my naked pictures of my PC with my phone, not my laptop.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's an image.
Duke.
There's a whole subgroup on Reddit I share pictures of it with.
I'm sure there is.
It's not just the
Reddit.
PC.
Oh, no.
That's all it is. No, but I just don't understand why. Like when it's your PC, people get dead serious. Like, I bought this thing in 2007. and you better fix it and make it the most secure thing in the world, Microsoft and Intel, or I'm going to come over there and picket your office.
They also pay more upfront for PCs than they do phones.
Yeah,
so
but I mean, but look, when it's your phone, it's just like, oh yeah,
I don't
when did you buy this?
disagree with you. I'm just saying the psychology of it is just based on, like, I think pricing to a large degree.
Well, and there are a lot of people who do yell about the Android updates for
They
sure.
do.
So yeah.
Yeah, but what do they do, Adam? Do they go like, forget you, I'm getting iPhone, and be like, oh, brand new Pixel 2, Pixel 3 just came out, no problem, I'll get that.
Yeah, well,
Right.
but I that's the thing, yeah, is that, you know, the people who care about security either go, I mean, that's why BlackBerry was so popular for so long, and, you know, those same people are going to Pixels, right? So
Yeah, I don't understand it, this weird double standard
I'm just
stuff.
saying, like, if in your mind all you see is like $20 a month, you don't think, oh, I'm actually paying $1,000 for this phone over time. You're just like, oh, that's not too expensive. But when you buy say this Ultrabook for $1,200, you remember that number.
Yeah, but again, that's that same double standard, because you buy a $1,200 and this is, you know, $1,100, you know, Ultrabook, $1,000, and it has a service life of 8 years. That's $100, you know, less than $100 a year, right?
I'm not saying your math isn't right. I'm just saying it's a
It is
psychology
wrong.
thing.
My math is wrong, but I mean, but the weirdest thing is, like, I just bought an $800 Pixel 2 XL. Oh my God, is my wife listening? So. And then in 3 years, I'll buy a Pixel 3 XL for $800, right? It's just like, in 10 years, I will have spent something like $4,000 on phones. And in 10 years, I will spend $1,000 on my PC. But it's just, the expectations are so high on PC, whereas your phone, nobody cares about. I don't understand that double standard. I don't.
well, but also I think Windows has a longer, like, support cycle. You know, Windows itself, it's like, hey, you know, when they come out and say that, oh, we're gonna support patches for like 10 years, it's different. People are used to being like, oh, I'm gonna get a new phone every couple years anyway. You know.
Well, but I mean, again, let's look at it this way. Hey, Microsoft is giving you a security update for your Pentium 4 based PC, okay? It's like your Pentium 4 gets the same security updates as a brand new Coffee Lake or Threadripper box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pentium 4, year 2001, still gets the same security update. But like, it's Android.
They
Sorry.
charge $100 for their OS.
Yeah, but still, I don't care. I mean, like, honestly, if you could say, well, Samsung, I will pay you $20 for you know, Android 9. Yeah, sure. Samsung's not going to do it, though. They're just like, oh yeah, you know how you get an Android 9, go out and buy the new Samsung, you know, 9. It's just kind of crazy. It's just, I don't know. All right, sorry.
Gordon
Part of the
Mom's
reason I
rant of the
switched to
week.
iPhone.
What'd you say?
Part of the reason I switched to iPhone.
Well, they're kind of guilty of it too, because they stopped supporting phones for iOS updates over time as well.
Yeah, Apple's pretty
Yeah,
guilty
but if they
about
push out an update, you can get it.
Yeah.
Like, in general, within the lifetime of your device.
including
mean,
the slowdown for the update. too.
Pixel works that way too, though. Pixel and Nexus phones, dude.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Till they push you overboard.
Well, I mean, the same happens to iPhones. They get
No, I mean, the worst thing about an iPhone is, hey, we're going to slow it down intentionally so you buy a new one. Oh, you caught us. It's all right. We were doing it for you. Oh,
That's
okay.
Power management.
Power management. We did that for you. Oh, my, thank you. I will go out and buy an iPhone 8. Okay. We've lost it. It's Tuesday.
Somebody's got to case of the Tuesdays.
All right, Q&A. I think we only have a couple questions actually printed out. Wait,
Yeah.
I
Did you,
have one.
did you print one out? Because I
so
did not. I
Gordon-
saved a tree.
Gordon, where can they send these questions to?
Oh, yes. Send it to thefullnerd@pcworld.com, thefullnerd@pcworld.com for questions. Look, I have one printed out right here. We will read it.
Yeah, we will. Also, you know, if you want to drop some questions in the chat, we'll try to rapid fire them as well. So
You want to go first?
go
Yeah,
for it.
Go
This
for it.
is Rick from New York, Ricardo Orellano. My question is, do you recommend the NVIDIA Shield TV Pro non-Pro as another alternative for gaming? I know there is a controller and also the ability to hook up a mouse and keyboard. Is this a viable $180 to $300 option until GPU prices and RAM normalize? In quotes, air quotes, normalize. And if it is, which Shield version would you recommend?
It's a little bit different with the Shield as opposed to other things because that can't play your PC games natively. It has GeForce, I forget, Game Stream it's called. So it can
Yeah.
stream games from your PC to your TV, but you still need to have a working PC for that to happen. It comes with a GeForce Now subscription capability, but that's not the same thing as GeForce Now on PCs. GeForce Now on PCs, you're renting a computer in the cloud and being able to play your games. GeForce Now on the Shield is a subscription service where you pay $10 a month and you can play and get access and stream X library of games.
Yeah, it's more like a
So-
Netflix subscription.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And Shield games, well, they have some pretty interesting games on there. It's an Android-based system, so they tend to have more Android-y kind of games, some
Mhm.
older games, stuff like
Mhm.
that. If you're looking to spend I think that the Shield TV we've said it's the best media streamer for geeks. It's one of the most full-featured media streaming boxes you can get, and I agree with all that. But if you're looking for a replacement gaming solution, I would suggest either trying to get into GeForce Now for PCs so you can play your existing games library, or I would probably suggest a console over a Shield TV as far
Oh.
as
Let's not even
actual
get into that.
gaming.
Let's not even get into that. You know, I'm with you. Yeah, I don't think a Shield is like, because I mean a lot of it, yeah, it's just Android games, you know, which everybody knows how Gordon thinks about that. They did port a couple of PC games, like you can get Half-Life 2.
And Portal.
You know, yeah, you know what I mean. You can. There are a couple traditional PC games over there, but yeah, I don't think it's really a viable replacement.
What's the game?
It's a badass. It's a badass
Yeah.
little box, but I think it's supplementary.
Yeah. I think it's better. It's better than what the Steam Link is doing and can do more. So if you're wanting to stream your PC to the
Sure.
TV,
But you can
you
also
know?
get a Steam Link now for like $15.
yeah.
You have
So-
to have it. No, you know, I gotta say, and I should bring this up. It's been a while since I've looked at GeForce. It's actually called GeForce Now, apparently.
Yes.
On Shield.
Yes, that's why it's confusing.
It's called this. I had to do a whole article about it when the PC version was announced at the last CES.
they're
Oh,
different.
GeForce
yeah.
Now versus GeForce Now.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Explain the differences.
You know, I think
There are some games.
Actually, we did a
AAA games on there. They're just older. So like Borderlands 2's on
Oh, yeah,
there.
Batman Arkham Knight,
BioShock.
Everspace.
I think Spec Ops: The Line might be on there.
You can't access your existing PC library, though.
No, it isn't. And it
No.
is $7.99 a month. So it's not. It's.
It's like almost
Not bad.
100 a year.
But you are streaming it, and they're saying 1080 quality. So GTX 1080 quality. Just Cause 2.
Yeah, for Half-Life 2. Okay.
No, this is streaming. I have tried this. When it first came out, I have a Shield at home. I did stream a couple games to try it out, and it was decent. Even is it a replacement? $8 a month for a year gets you to a GT-1030. So I don't know.
I'd
It's
get
tough.
a console over that.
Really?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to play modern, like just released AAA games, and you're not as into like the really quirky indie PC style games, which honestly don't usually require that much GPU power anyway, so you could still probably play them on an older system. So if you only really want to play AAA games, console is the way to go.
And I don't know if I haven't tried it in a long time, but I don't know if this supports multiplayer on
I don't
streams.
remember.
Ooh,
It's possible.
you would hope so, right?
Yeah, you would think some of the games that are not standalone. But here's my question though: how much does it cost for an Xbox subscription or PlayStation subscription?
On sale, average now, it's been pretty
Not on
stuck
sale.
at. It's at 60, but it goes on sale so often you pretty much can just get it for 40.
So
Yeah.
$40 a year for
Yeah.
both of them.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So versus $8.
And that comes with some free games every month, too.
it does. So it comes with minimum three free games a month, I think. Because you get two Xbox One games, and I think 2 Xbox 360 games.
Is there Cody support on both of those?
Cody just came to Xbox One.
How are they doing that? They're able to. Oh, interesting.
Universal Windows platform.
Oh, interesting.
Hey, and the Xbox One S has a 4K Blu-ray drive. So, boom.
Yeah, it's
There you
pretty
go.
tough. I gotta say, it's still. I mean, the GeForce console. I mean, the Shield console is still the Cadillac of Android streaming
hell yeah.
boxes.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
truly the Cadillac
yeah.
of streaming boxes. Is Android streaming the everything we expect it to be? I don't know. I mean, it's great for video, fantastic for video kind of things, but not, I gotta say, I'm kind of with you guys there.
Whoa.
It may actually make more sense to buy a bottom end console, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hold up. What? Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Mark that
No,
time.
really, I mean-
Mark
No.
the time.
He's being serious.
But again, because I gotta say, I mean, he does say mouse and keyboard, but
It doesn't. I mean, you're not
gonna
going to be able
really-
to play League of Legends or anything on this.
It's really going to be it's really going to be a controller kind of gaming, and once you move down to controllers, it's really hard to beat the scale and the availability of consoles, right? So, I mean, gaming consoles.
And personally speaking, I know this is a very subjective sort of opinion, but I find the controller for Xbox One far more comfortable than that Shield controller. And then there's also, the PlayStation controller, which some people love, and I can't do because of my wrist.
Inability to use PlayStation controllers is the.
It's just
yeah.
weird to have the thumbsticks down here, dude. Just,
I have the same problem. Like when I try to do this on my Xbox controller, it doesn't work. I'm moving mouse and keyboard for audio listeners. It doesn't work. It just does not do the same thing. Like this, every time I try,
can't
I'm
imagine
like,
why.
why can't I use my mouse, my
Can't
high
imagine why.
DPI gaming mouse?
So, Rusty Shackleford on
yes,
on
from
YouTube.
Texas.
Yes. He says, how worried are you guys that there'll be a price of silicon wafers rising?
I'm not. I think we might have talked about this at the end of last week too.
We did.
But the price of silicon wafers is such a minuscule part of the overall cost that even if it does go up, as has been rumored, or I'm not sure if it's confirmed at this point, it will add minimal cost, like $1 or $2 to a processor.
Yeah, and that's what analysts have told me over the years. The same thing as never factor in the cost of manufacturing. For the most part, like those kind of raw materials don't matter that much. It's all the marketing and the pretty colors and the ads. That's what you're paying.
Well, there's plenty of steps that come after the silicon wafer as well. That
Yeah, but it's not the design. It's all the R&D that goes into it, and there's just so much more than the sand that's been melted to make the chip. It seems like the impression I get.
Good question though.
We had a question.
I do have a question.
Go
Let's
for
see.
it.
All right. So this is from Tom Nickel. I'm pronouncing your last name right. Hi, folks. Your recent article and video on pre-built versus DIY computers struck a chord in me. Within the last week, I've had to use Windows System Restore 3 separate times. I don't know why. Thankfully, my system is now stabilized. However, the age of my system, my motherboard BIOS dates back to 2009, and my hard drive is now almost 3 years old. Together with the incident I just mentioned, has led me to look into either buying or building a new PC. I've built my last 3 or 4 PCs. However, I am now retired on a fixed income, so I'm kind of paraphrasing here. The current pricing is concerning. Seems like research on eBay indicates that the components for a new PC, including a new UPS and 5.1 surround speakers, would run somewhere around $975. Naturally, I would like to bring that figure down as far as possible without overly compromising performance. I should explain that I am not into PC gaming as such. Rather, I'm more into home theater PCs for various reasons. That being the case, and with pre-built versus DIY, and with the pre-built versus DIY situation you've described, how would you suggest I proceed? And so I actually reached out to him because I wanted to get more specifics about like what kind of home theater PC setup he had. I feel actually really bad for all the readers who actually write in, and I'm like, ooh, I want to answer that one, because then I like pepper them with questions. I'm like, well, what are your exact parameters?
It's important. It makes a difference.
Yeah,
it really does, because I said like, well, when you say home theater PC, do you mean like, are you using it just for streaming, or are you like me where you actually have like a capture card or multiple capture cards in there and you're actually using it like a DVR? And he turns out that he actually is using it like a DVR. So he has I think it's what is it right here? An HD Home Run Prime cable card unit. He said it's got 3 built-in tuners. He's got a 1 terabyte hard drive dedicated to, recording all those streams. And then he says he's planning on upgrading to a 2 terabyte hard drive. He can't afford an SSD right now because they're low expensive. And he actually mentioned going to eBay and finding like bare bone setups. And so after all this information, I would say two options popped out to me. I think if you wanted to still go with the DIY route, I think actually just building a Ryzen system with that 2200G would do really well, because if you're working with parts that are as old as like what, almost 10 years now, 2009.
So Core 2 parts. Probably.
Yeah, so I think that would be a nice bump for you. If you can afford it, maybe even going with that, 4-core, 8-thread part, the 2400G. And then you can just reuse a lot of the existing stuff you have. You can reuse, obviously, that TV tuner equipment. You can reuse the hard drive. So even if you get another, 2 terabyte drive, there's no reason you still can't use the 1 terabyte. And
That's what I do.
yeah, and since you're going for costs, you don't have to worry about, because I think I asked him specifically because it was a home theater PC setup. I was a little concerned because some people like it to be like small and for it to fit right into the entertainment system, and I don't think that was a concern. So you can just go out and buy like one of those super cheap like mid towers, and then you have plenty of room to like shove all your stuff in there, and you can always expand down the road. So that's the first option. The other option, if you're really on a limited income, is that depending on where you live, some universities actually have like a store on campus where they sell their used PC hardware, and depending on the university, sometimes they're fairly new. Like you can get stuff that's maybe like 2 or 3 years old, depending on how frequently they update their hardware. And
I've never heard of this.
yeah, so it depends on the university. Like when my university, which is, north of San Francisco, their selection is crap. Like they use that stuff till it's dead. So when you go there, it's like 10-year-old PCs, which is not very helpful. But I was watching like a YouTube video, and this guy went to his university. He did the same trick, and he got like a fairly recent computer, like maybe 3 or 4 years old, for like $80. And I was like, okay, like that's a pretty good deal, because it includes the license for Windows too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another option. And then other than that, I would just, the third option would be just looking for like some kind of DIY pre-built system, like on Best Buy. I'm really hesitant about eBay. I always worry that like if you buy through eBay, unless it's like Best Buy selling through eBay, or like, B&H selling through eBay, or like some actual retailer where you can still go into the store or call corporate and complain, I get really nervous about that kind of stuff, because someone could dump like bad hardware on you and just like take off.
Yeah, it does happen. But there are good deals, which is,
It can be. I mean, if you get lucky, it could be that person who bought a pre-built system to harvest just the GPU, and they're like, yeah, I don't need the rest of it.
Yeah, no, that's actually.
Actually, if he doesn't care about gaming, I think Ryzen APU makes a whole lot of sense in this situation for an HD PC.
Yeah.
The only thing that really you have to keep track of with that is it's called PlayReady 3.0, a DRM system. That out of the box, the Ryzen APUs don't support them, but they just said, I saw news reports about it today, that they'll be pushing out a driver update to support that in the next month or two. So I think that's a great HTPC solution, especially for the use cases he described, but you might have issues with Netflix for a month or so.
Yeah, I think they, in AMD at CES, they said like, we're, they had the list of codecs that they're supporting and the like. So it supports all modern codecs. PlayReady, they have to support. Intel definitely already has that at this point. And I got to say, I would, if he's got 2009 era parts, so again, it could be Core 2, could be, early, Core i7 or Nehalem parts, right? I would reuse. I'd DIY it. I'd just buy a new motherboard.
Where?
What? No, I mean, I
you mean like completely replace both the CPU and the motherboard?
I would just replace CPU, motherboard, and RAM.
I thought you meant just the mother for a second. I was like, what?
He could reuse, although that hard drive, of course, it's just, who cares if you've lost, like, whatever you record, it's just television, I guess, for a lot of people, but it's not like you're losing critical data. I would think just reuse everything, power supply case, hard drive.
Yeah, you can reuse a lot of it.
Right, so really, all you're looking at is paying for the price of a processor, board, and RAM. So, which is, the wonderful thing about PC, that ATX power supply still works. It'll power up everything modern. So just do a swap out. Unless the power supply is going bad, but usually they just stop working. They don't just kind of like some sort of work. So I would say everything still works. Change board, RAM, and processor. I would DIY it, I would think. So
I think I would too, for the use case, because there's so much that you can reuse.
yeah. Yeah, and really,
No, I'm not familiar with the way that decoding tuner TV works. I know, like, if you use Plex, more CPU is better for encoding and popping it out to other devices. Is it worthwhile to spend more for the extra threads?
I don't
Or
think
no?
so. From what I know of the hardware he mentioned, all the encoding is done in the hardware.
Yeah.
It's the unit itself does all that stuff. So you don't have to. It doesn't have any additional burden on the system.
yeah,
So you could just get the $99 part and
yeah,
be happy all
go
day.
as cheap
Yeah.
as possible. I mean, you're the only you'll pay in decoding it, but all that's done on the GPU these days, and it's nothing. It's all in hardware, so you can decode just about anything. So yeah, and all the encode and these 3 tuner boxes, they do all the encoding,
Yeah,
and it's like over USB or sometimes over PCIe. So
that was the thing for the longest time too, because back when I got into, kind of rolling my own DVR, the only ones that actually did like hardware encoding on the card itself were internal cards. You couldn't get an external like unit for a long time that would do that. It was dependent on the system. And then now, like, I think they're called Silicon Dust. They're the ones that do that like home run stuff. They actually came out with some really solid external units.
Yeah.
They get loud though, from what I hear. You have to like put that in like your basement or your like garage or something.
and enjoy it while it lasts. I heard there's a rumor they may try to close the. They may allow them to
OTA
encrypt.
is going to get encrypted.
I don't. Yeah, or maybe they've closed it on cable. So like, you know how sometimes cable companies will just carry unencrypted. I think they can now encrypt.
Well, the unit he mentioned, I think, is the one that you can get like a
ATSC.
card from your cable company that like decodes
Oh wow,
it, like
cable card.
unencrypts it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, they hate doing that. They hate doing that.
But they have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
One benefit to government regulation.
I think ATSC. I think I think he could be running ATSC too, right? Just over the air. So, but I thought I heard
but the model he mentioned, he said he's a cable card unit.
Oh, okay, yeah. So cable card. Wow, that's like that's one
Turned
of
out
the
to
PC
be a more
lost.
interesting question than I thought it would be.
Yeah. I think that was our last question, though, right? Unless Adam, you got
Do
any?
you have any in the chat?
Yeah, we got one from Good Looking Honky.
Good username.
Do you believe we will see a i10 processor? L10. Wait. Maybe he miswrote this. Never mind.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Who knows?
right after the i9 comes out. Oh wait, maybe that's what he means.
Oh yeah. Maybe that's
so
what
we
he
have
means.
Core i9, and there's gonna be. I don't know. I know they were really resistant to even doing Core i9 in the first place. So I don't know. And they usually are spaced out. So it'd be i11, Core i11.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Only odd numbers.
Do you think they would plan for it, or do you think it'd be more like response to anything AMD does?
I don't know. I mean, clearly Core i9, so for people who don't know, all of the test CPUs that everybody got for Skylake X, they actually, when you checked the CPU ID on them, they all said Core i7. Every single one of them identified in the BIOS and to everything. They told you it was a Core i7. And at the briefing that the media got, we were all told, like, look, we know these chips we're going to give you will say Core i7. We did that to fool everybody, to fool all the leak sites. We didn't want anybody to know it's called Core i9 to the very last minute. And they said it's a trivial thing just to have the production CPUs identify themselves as Core i9. So we did that to keep it a super secret. I 80% believe Intel on that. And then 20% of me says, oh my God, they got this Threadripper thing. We need something that's two better than Core i7. Well, it's Core i9. That's easy. It's two better. Core i7's good. Core i9, two better, right? So I don't know. I do, possibly believe them, but also it could also be, they don't want to come out and say, yeah, we had to come out and respond. No company ever wants to come out and say that.
Well, I don't think they would ever say that. I'm just saying from where we're sitting, or where you're sitting rather, like which one do you think it was?
I don't know. I mean, leaks are a huge problem for Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA, right? So honestly, it leaked anyway. It didn't matter. It didn't leak till that day at Computex when they announced it, which is amazing because they told us about it. They did a phone briefing for us, I think Thursday or something like that. And then by Sunday, they announced it and it didn't leak. So I got to say it did work. That was effective. But, some part of me, there's always going to be some part of me that says we need to do something, big and bold and introduce a Core i9 as something big and bold. So, I mean, I'll never know. We'll never know, in fact. So.
I wouldn't expect the Core 11 anytime soon, though.
No.
i11, whatever.
i11?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to see that. Core i9, even if they have to expand the line, Core i9, it's new. They're not going to add another one, I don't think.
Well, the problem with that too is what happens when we get the Core i13.
You got to skip it.
Bad luck.
You can't. What, are you going to skip it?
Only for
That's what they do in elevators.
Is that really true though?
I mean,
Yeah, I've seen elevators that don't have 13th floor.
man, I just
or in China
how
4.
how many how many cores will we have to get to before they start expanding to like that number though?
It could be something else though. I just kind of.
They should make Core 11 chips with the fancy new discrete GPUs that Raj's team is making. Bring it to 11.
Oh,
Nice. You mean, but as a, didn't they just break something out? I thought I saw something Raj's name in
They're
Intel.
going to talk about it, yeah. They're going to, I didn't see the details before we hopped in here, but yeah.
Huh. Well, that'd be
Make a
interesting.
big badass 18-core chip with one of those GPUs hooked up to it, crank it to Core i11.
But you mean as a discrete part, not in the heat spreader. You don't mean a.
I don't know. You're looking too far into the joke.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was a joke. I was thinking, Brad's got the inside here. All right, we better go before we get yelled at.
well, real quick
wait.
to follow up on the HTPC, Z530 on YouTube says transcoding maxes out octa-core for most media servers that they've used. So
Yeah, I think. Well, if you're
But
going to
that's
do,
like we're talking about Plex though. We're not talking about taking basically a TV signal and then encoding that.
yeah, and then again, these Silicon Dust, the home run boxes it's already an encoded signal. You're just going to watch it and throw it away. I don't think they're going to re-encode it again. I wouldn't think they'd. It just seems silly to take that signal and then transcode it over again. So which you could do in the background because you got nothing else to do. So.
Yeah.
I've got 3 more quick questions.
okay.
eKind11 on Twitch says, do you think there will be an 8-core mainstream Coffee Lake chip?
Yes. There's all these rumors of that already coming. I mean, that's going to happen, I think.
Yeah.
Foregone conclusion, I think, to compete.
Okay. Bobby Vinette on Facebook says, I'm looking to build a new desktop. Should I wait for the next release of Threadripper?
Ooh.
Depends what you're doing. The current ones are pretty badass, so unless you got a real reason to wait, I wouldn't.
Yeah, and the prices have come down on them, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, my opinion is we're almost in March. There's talks of Threadripper plus 2, whatever it is, by August.
Second half.
Second
Yeah,
half.
second half.
But,
Third quarter.
but you can do a lot of work between now and August.
Yeah, but there's nothing like,
No, I know.
there's just like, yeah, I just got, oh no, really? Yeah.
No, I know.
Sucks for you.
I'm just saying.
I couldn't do it now. It's too close. I think sort of like it depends on your comfort level, right? Like, would you go out? Would you recommend Brad somebody go out and buy a 1080 Ti at this point? Well, I mean, assuming prices were not like.
Well, you have to make it equivalent. You have to basically say like the 1080 Ti is, discounted versus its MSRP.
Well, okay, so like not pricing. So if I can go out and buy a 1080 Ti now for list price, what do they go for?
$700
And
bucks.
we're 600 to 650, right? Whatever they were supposed to actually be. And we are 3 months away from a new graphics card launch. We don't know. Maybe they'll just talk about it. We don't know in a little bit. I would say you got to wait. It's too close. For me, like 6 months is too close. 12 months is like, okay, who knows what it draws. But like 6 months is pretty close.
But that's like in a
To me,
vacuum.
half a year's a year in tech time.
Yeah, but this is a big purchase. I mean, like for me, I'm still rolling ancient hardware. So you don't go out and, you just like, you want to feel good for the longest amount of time.
But at least you can know that Threadripper 2, whatever, is not going to be as big of a jump. I mean, like we built our 8-core machines in there for video production, and then Threadripper came out, a couple months later, and we're like, oh my god, we could have, whatever, company money, but like that's a huge difference. You're saying like, from Threadripper 1 to 2, I mean,
I don't know
the
what it
jump's
is,
not
though.
going
We
to be
don't know
that
what
big,
it
right?
is.
But even still, I feel like you're leaving price off the table, and it's not a vacuum, right?
You're right. If it's
True.
like Adam and work is paying for it, buy today, buy 2. And then make one of them go home with you to test, okay? But that's not, if it's building on its own,
But no,
like
even
6
if
months.
even if he's building his own, like it's not as cheap as it was during Black Friday. But I mean, you're not going to be paying. I don't think like Threadripper 2 is going to be as low as Threadripper is currently. So if he can make a lot of use out of the machine
true.
now between, what is it? It's still February. It's like that's like 6 months between now and August.
Yeah.
Then maybe it's worth the difference. And then
If I were him, I'd do it now.
there's nothing stopping him from selling that chip later. If
Also,
he needed to, and upgrading then because
I
the
gotta go buy
motherboard
a
should support.
Samsung, the new what's it, the 8. I gotta go buy the 8 S9.
Well,
no,
here's,
S8.
but here's the thing, Gordon.
I'm gonna buy the S8 right now.
Can you reuse that case though for upgrading to an S9? So then you would have to hold out.
I'm just saying, should I go buy an S8 right now?
No.
Well, there's a big difference between something coming out in 2 weeks and something coming out in 6 months.
We don't know when
Depends.
S9 is coming out.
I'm just saying it's a long time, Gordon.
It's only February, and they said second half.
I understand that, but this is not a phone that you will throw away in 6 months, which is how it works with phones. This is a CPU this person may use for the next 3 years,
which he could still replace.
More
if he
than
wanted
5
to-
years,
if he wanted
probably,
to upgrade, because that motherboard will still be good.
Yeah, but what's he gonna do with his $900 Threadripper 1, right? If it's we don't even know if it's called Threadripper 2. It could be Threadripper Plus, Threadripper, Part 2. We don't know, but
If
Part 2.
it depends on what he's using it for, but if he's doing something that could make actual use of Threadripper kind of CPU, I think it's worthwhile productivity-wise to not wait 6-ish months.
okay, all right,
yes.
Brad, you got me there. You got me there. If this is for work and it is productive, well, not for work, but
This is
you're a
what we've been saying
freelancer.
this whole time.
That's not what you've been saying.
Yes,
I mean, it's not like he's getting it for gaming,
We don't know that. If you're doing, all right.
I mean, if you're doing it just for kicks, then you can wait as long as you like.
All right, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you're stuck right now with some, Sandy Bridge Core i7, yeah, definitely. It's hard. All right. Forget what I said.
All right. Last random question from Jacob Flores on YouTube. He says, what are our preferences? Each one of us: Siri, Cortana, Alexa, or Google Assistant?
Ooh, that's like, ooh.
Well,
I don't have home speakers in my home, and I only use my phone for Outlook and Twitter. Basically, I don't care about any of them.
Gordon says none of
he's
the above.
from the Granite State, so they, we don't trust in that stuff up here.
My preference is Google Assistant.
I second that.
Yeah.
I've tried all of them, and I pretty much hate
I haven't really used
all of
Cortana
them.
that much.
Well, no, I don't even hate all of them. I don't hate. I guess the distinguishing factor for me is that I don't hate the Google Assistant, but I hate everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I referenced earlier switching to iPhone. My phone before this was the Moto X, and Google Assistant, or Google Now, I think it was called at the time, is the one thing that I really miss from Android, because it was cool having that personalized homepage. Hey, it's this was the weather today. Here are 6 stories that we think you specifically will like, so on and so forth. And there's nothing like that on iPhone. So.
And it just responds better to natural language queries too. Every time, so I carry both an iPhone and an Android phone because I'm just trying to keep up with both ecosystems. And every single time I ask Siri something, I just really don't get a good response out of it. And then if I ask Google Assistant, it'll at least bring up a Google search page or something that will at least be more related to what I asked.
I'm going to surprise you here.
You gonna pick Cortana?
Oh, hell no. No, that's crazy talk. That's an insult. Come on. Cortana's just like, look, I'm going to surprise everyone and say if I had to, look, I'm on my spaceship. Everybody else is asleep. This is the entire movie. It's passenger.
I was going to say, are you talking about
I wake up,
passengers?
and I'm not going to do that kind of like real not nice move. There's another D word for what he did. And I'm going to I got to talk to somebody. If I'm going to have somebody to have with me that whole time, it's going to have to be Siri. I'm sorry, but
Why?
I have a Pixel 2 XL, right? State of the art Google phone. And man, that thing is just the searches are because you will take my son has an iPhone 5S and he'll have conversations with Siri. Yeah. Siri is as dumb as a brick. It is as dumb as a brick, but it feels like you're having a conversation with someone. With Google Assistant, it's oh, Google, what's happening tomorrow on this thing? Or look up this so-and-so, or tell me about this, webpage. I'm driving my car. Can you tell me what it is?
No,
It's
they
just
actually reads it out loud.
Sometimes, and sometimes it just dumps you on a search page. I could have done the search myself. Siri actually feels like what we're approaching.
Well, no, because
Yeah,
Siri,
you haven't used it
Siri's
enough.
common answer to everything that I ask is,
Let me
I
Google
don't
it for you.
know.
I don't know the answer to that.
But
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer
I'm
to
sorry,
that.
but you know what?
Well, he said it's like talking to an actual dumb person.
Yeah, I mean, it's like talking to a dumb person, but at least you're having a conversation with a dumb person.
Yeah, can you really last a whole year doing that? I
Well,
wouldn't.
it's better than like, can you tell me about so-and-so, Google Assistant, whatever. You don't even have a name. You're not even so worthy.
I just
And
call
then
it Google
bloop,
Siri.
bloop. Oh, great. You looked up a Wikipedia page. Thanks. Yeah, I could have done
think-
that myself.
Still more interesting than having someone
I've had
constantly
better
say,
conversations
I don't
with our
know
hamster."
the answer to that. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
I think Google really messed up not giving it a name, unlike everybody else.
Agreed.
Just calling it
Yes.
Google Assistant. It's just like it makes me feel like acknowledging
clinical.
that this massive privacy invading company is listening to whatever I say in the nearby vicinity, as opposed to Siri, my dumb friend.
Yes.
Gordon,
I don't care, but at least my dumb friend is talking back. They're acknowledging. They're not going to be on and going to
But
tell
it's going to
you,
be that
"Here's the
annoying
information.
friend
Just
that
look
just
at my phone."
repeats the same jokes over and over and over. Oh my God, and over again.
Gordon, would you rather have HAL 9000 or Skynet as your personal assistant?
Skynet doesn't talk. Skynet doesn't talk.
So he's voting for Hal.
So yeah, you'd
I'd
rather,
rather have Hal. At least like, well, look, we're going to Jupiter, pal. At least we can talk. Skynet doesn't talk.
Well, it
just decides in, like-
talks through its terminators, you know?
No, it does. It decides instantly, like, oh my God, you're not worth. You're messing the planet up. We're gonna wipe you out. And it took like a millisecond to figure that out.
So then it's
and then
it's,
it didn't
it's
even
gonna,
tell you that. That's what's wrong with Skynet. That's what's so bad about Skynet.
No, Skynet is going to figure out the best possible solution before you even think it, so that they're going to serve it up to you.
No, here's how it
Perfect.
works, Adam. Look, Skynet is like, Skynet, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? We will terminate all of you tomorrow. Like Siri would like tell you, oh, we've decided to terminate you, all of you. Skynet wouldn't even say anything. It would just like launch nukes and that'd be it.
Yeah,
It doesn't talk to you.
So we're learning that Gordon
just
really
needs-
values communication.
Yeah, he just
Humans
needs
like-
somebody to have like a chat with him.
I want you to ask me a question.
Why is your shirt red? That's not the Google Assistant. That's Bing. You can. Oh my God! Why would you even bring up Bing? Like that's like the worst of Cortana right there. Oh God. That's the worst feature in Windows 10 and on Xbox.
Yeah.
The worst.
That's all you get is red. Like I did a search for red. And that
No, your search says Reddit, World of Warships.
well, that's because it auto corrected. But look, that's all you get. It's like, oh, thanks Google Assistant for giving me a search for red, which anybody could do.
You don't think that's a form of like conversation? Like they're being helpful.
No.
way
You know what
better
that
than
is?
the dumb friend.
Look, that is the entire
It's like
plot.
having a concierge service.
That is the entire plot of Castaway with Tom Hanks. All right, I don't want to be on the island with what is it? What's the character? It's
the volleyball thing.
yeah, what's the name of the volleyball? I can't remember. Wilson, right? It's like Wilson never answers. My God, do you know what Tom Hanks would have done to get Wilson to say like, I don't know. I don't know. Like that's enough to.
But sometimes the Google Assistant does actually give you a really nice full answer.
I'm on a desert island. I don't actually know. I don't need to know what red is. I just need to have a conversation about red. I prefer my dumb friend Siri. That's why I'd bring her. And I don't even have an iPhone. I have a Pixel. Brad is like, just let me go. Just let me go.
You're walking down the street just talking at nothing. It's like crazy street people that everyone knows. That's what the world's turning into.
Crazy street
Siri?
people.
Any of them, just talking at your phone, walking down the street is weird.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But at least you can talk to your phone and get a response.
Dark Sith AZ on Twitch says Bixby. There you go.
Oh my God.
No.
Yeah, I would take Cortana over Bixby, I gotta say. Like that is like
Cortana,
me
I
too.
think, is the most personable out of all of them, but it's the most useless because I'm never going to talk to my PC to find an answer. I'm just going to open Google.
yeah, that's the problem with Cortana. It's just like it's not I have my mouse and keyboard here. I would not use inefficient speech to ask my and that's kind of the problem with Cortana, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
So
All right, Jacob Flores got us off of PC Talk.
yeah, he did.
Anyway.
Person after your own heart.
All right.
Cool. Let's finish this, shall we?
All right. So check back in 2 weeks for your fix of PC talk and aimless rambling about Cortana and Bixby on the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, check back on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. And subscribe. See, I'm not reading this. That's why I'm getting it all wrong. Leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Every time you do, someone uses Cortana. Is that a plus or a negative? I don't know. Send questions and comments to thefullnerd@pcworld.com. Thanks for coming. I'm Gordon Maong with Brad Charkis.
Adios.
Elena Yee.
Bye, everyone.
And Adam Patrick Murray will take us out finally.
Twitch.tv/PC.
This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, online store, or website, make it with Squarespace. Hey guys, this is Austin. Recently, I did a video on this guy, a $650 gaming laptop entirely powered by AMD Ryzen. That got me thinking, how would it stack up to an Intel and Nvidia option? That's where this comes in. This is the Acer Aspire 5. Not only does it have a Core i5 processor and MX150 graphics, but impressively, it comes in with an even cheaper $600 price tag. On paper, this guy looks very similar to the HP Envy. So we're getting a 15.6-inch display, and it's actually reasonably thin considering it is a gaming laptop. I will say at first glance, the build quality does not match up to that HP. It's all plastic, and while it doesn't look bad, it sort of lacks that premium feel of the Envy. However, what it lacks in feel, it makes up for in actual functionality. Not only are we getting a full-size Ethernet jack, but we also get USB-C, HDMI, a USB 3.0 port, as well as an SD card reader, and on the other side, we're also getting 2 more USB ports. You're getting a full-size keyboard layout in addition to the number row, and even though most of the laptop is plastic, it does have this metal shell on the inside, which does feel pretty nice as a palm rest. Inside, this guy has an 8th gen Core i5 A250U, so it's going to be one of the new quad-core chips. You're getting those NVIDIA MX150 graphics, 8GB of dual-channel DDR4, as well as a 256GB SSD. However, all it takes is for you to fire up the Aspire 5 before you realize that there is one major thing missing: a decent-looking screen. So on paper, it's not bad. We're getting a 15.6-inch panel with
What's going on, everyone? It's Marco here from PhoneDog.com, and 2017 is coming to an end, and it's kind of time to reminiscent and look back at some of the best products unveiled in 2017. There's definitely been a plethora of great devices, smartphones, tablets, computers. A lot has been announced in 2017 and has been released in 2017, but I want to talk about one specific product that I think is pretty underrated in 2017 when it launched this summer. There was a lot of hype around it, but then it quickly died off, and I really haven't seen a whole lot of content about this product ever since, and that is the Apple iPad Pro, specifically the 10.5-inch device, because V12.9 is just too big to use every day. So here are my reasons why I think the iPad Pro 10.5 is the best iPad ever made, and it's also my favorite iPad ever, and has really brought me back to using tablets on an everyday basis. Now, when you take a look at the iPad Pro 10.5, it really looks like a normal iPad. Yes, it's the first 10.5-inch display size, and it is a different form factor than the 9.7 or the 12.9. It's actually a little taller, and they did slim down the bezels. Now, they're definitely not small by any imagine there. They're still pretty massive bezels, but they are smaller, noticeably smaller than the 12.9 or the iPad 9.7, the one that was launched in 2017. But the biggest feature, or I think the biggest selling point of the iPad Pro 10.5 is really its ProMotion display. And ProMotion is marketing buzz for a 120 Hz refresh rate display, which is absolutely creamy. It's buttery smooth on the iPad Pro. It really, really looks amazing. On video, I can only shoot at 24 frames per second, or I choose to shoot at 24 frames per second, so you're not going to see the buttery smooth that I'm seeing in real life, but head to an Apple Store or Best Buy and play around with an iPad Pro, and you'll instantaneously notice the difference between this and any other iPad that doesn't have ProMotion. And speaking of the display, the iPad Pro 10.5 also comes with a P3 color gamut IPS display with a 600 nit brightness. It was basically the same kind of shift from the previous generation MacBook Pro to the current generation MacBook Pro. It may not look like a lot on paper, but in person, the new color gamut is amazing, and the extra brightness of that IPS panel does make a huge difference. So Apple's really targeting the pro market. That's why they're adding P3. It's about 99% color accurate on the RGB scale, which basically makes it a very attractive package for any artist or a content creator, because they need to have accurate color representation on a display to the highest. So if this thing matches the same display that's on the MacBook Pro and the new iMac and the iMac Pro, then we're talking about very uniform color between all those Apple Pro devices that people use to make content. And one last feature with that ProMotion display is the low latency with the Apple Pencil. So the latency was pretty darn good on the previous iPad Pro, but with this new 10.5-inch model, it's even better. It's literally not even noticeable by humans at all. I mean, I cannot see any latency or feel any latency with the Apple Pencil at all, which again is another huge plus for the pro content creators, the artists that want to use the Apple Pencil and the iPad Pro in combination to make content. And the next thing I want to talk about is its content consumption factor. The iPad Pro is absolutely the best Apple product in terms of content consumption. If you try to use it on your iPhone, the display's pretty small, so it's not exactly the best, most friendly way to watch videos. And then if you go on the MacBook line, well, if you get a MacBook Pro, battery life isn't exactly as good, and it's heavier, and it's bigger. It's just not as easy to lug around. And well, the iPad still has a 10-hour battery life. It's fanless and never gets hot, in my opinion. And the display at 10.5 inches, it's high resolution. It's the perfect size, and now you can get it with up to ½ TB of storage, which basically makes this thing the ultimate media device. I have Netflix loaded up all the time, Amazon Prime, iTunes. I download so many movies and watch this on the go. I can go on a lot of flights. I can also charge this with a battery bank and not have to worry about getting something that's rated for a MacBook, because this takes a much smaller wattage to charge up. So it honestly is the best content consumption device that Apple sells, and that's not only just iPad Pro 10.5 specific, that's just iPad in general. It's a great device for that. Now moving over to the software side of things, this is probably the least pro, but it's still a kind of a pro for the iPad Pro, and that is iOS 11. It's the latest iteration of iOS, and it's really the iOS meant for iPad. Having that dock accessible everywhere, having 3 applications at once in terms of true multitasking, all of that is very helpful. But again, all of that also relies on developer support. Some applications just still don't support multitasking in that windowed view. Some applications don't even support split view, something that's been on iPad for a couple years now. So there's definitely some work to do on the iOS front, but it does feel like the most complete iOS for iPad. Now, is it a laptop replacement? Absolutely not. I still find myself frustrated with a lot of things that I can't do on the iPad. Having a file system finally is a very nice thing. Also, drag and drop, being able to send attachments and links right from Safari into Mail is a super easy and user-friendly way to do it. But again, it's much easier and much more natural on a Mac or a PC than it is on an iPad. But it's getting there slowly. So hopefully in iOS 12, we'll see a better and more complete iOS specifically for iPad Pro. And the last thing I want to talk about in terms of why I think the iPad Pro is the best iPad Pro or iPad ever made is its form factor. It's 10.5 inches in the display, it's 6.1 millimeters thick, it weighs 1 pound. It's honestly the best form factor iPad I've ever used. I love the 10.5 inch display. I love the slimmer bezels, even though they're still pretty big on the forehead and chin. But again, it's still a very comfortable iPad. Compared to the 12.9 inch iPad Pro, this is a one-handed device. I could hold this, read a book or watch a movie. I can put my smart cover on and prop it up and watch a movie like that. It honestly is the most complete iPad that I've ever used, and it honestly gets used every single day. I mean, in the morning, I watch my TV. I have DirecTV Now. I can watch that, Netflix. I can read all my news articles, all my newspaper articles, all my just tech articles right on my iPad. I don't even touch my MacBook Pro unless I actually have to do some kind of heavier compute task. So that's why I think the iPad Pro 10.5 is the best iPad you can buy and is the best iPad ever made so far. And I really, really am looking forward to the next generation of iPad. Hopefully they can make that bezel even smaller, maybe an OLED display. That would be absolutely killer on the iPad Pro. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know that this is an old device, but I think it's a very underrated device, and it's honestly the best, or one of the best Apple products that they have released in all of 2017. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, or if you have an iPad Pro, let me know what you think about your iPad Pro. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you want to return it? Do you have any other iPad? And yeah, just leave me a comment below. And if you use any other tablet, an Android tablet, let me know what you have.
Hi guys, this is Valentina Palladino for Ars Technica, and today I'm here with the remarkable e-ink tablet. This is a $599 Kindle that you can write on per se, and I'm going to tell you some of the pros and cons of using this device. So one of the pros of the remarkable e-ink tablet is its design. It's really interesting and cool. It's extremely light. It weighs less than a pound, and it has a 10.3 inch 226 dpi display. So this, if you're familiar with a Kindle or any other e-reader device, you will know what this display is. It's a monochrome e-ink display, and the overall design of it is very interesting. It has this metal back to it, but otherwise it's just kind of light and airy, and it definitely will not weigh you down if you put it in your backpack and you have to go out for the entire day with it. Another pro to this tablet is, not surprising, it's a wonderful e-reader. It is bigger than most Kindle devices and other e-readers that I've seen, but it's not unwieldy, and the display is great for reading. I mean, you really can't get that much better than an e-ink display if you're going to be reading a lot and consuming a lot of text on a digital device. So it has great viewing angles, and it's also a really great experience when you read in direct sunlight or really sunny rooms or outside or anything like that. You're not going to get any kind of disruption with the display. The contrast is really great, so anytime you're reading any type of document or any paper that you might have on this device, you're not going to be obstructed at all. Another great thing about the remarkable tablet is that it is a pretty good experience when you're writing or drawing on it. It comes with this little stylus right here, and the stylus does not take any batteries, so you don't have to worry about that. But it has overall good palm rejection, so you're not going to get any stray strokes when you're drawing on it or writing notes or anything. It also comes with a lot of paper templates, so if you prefer using a grid template, lined, college ruled, anything like that, there are even weekly planner templates. You can kind of set up a whole notebook on here and organize it the way that you want to thanks to those templates. And artists will also like the fact that there is a layers tool in these like the notes that you can make. So if you do want to kind of separate things that you do by layers like you would in Photoshop or Procreate, any other program like that, you can do that on this tablet. So now onto the not so great things about the remarkable tablet. One of them comes with the fact that it is a first generation device. It has first generation software, so there are a lot of weird issues that you might experience while using it. One of the big ones that I found is that your highlights aren't maintained when you are highlighting in an EPUB file versus a PDF file. So in an EPUB file, you can change the text settings if you want to make the text larger, if you want the line spacing to be different, all so that you can read a little bit better. However, if you're highlighting any passages and things like that, it will not be maintained if you change the text settings afterwards, which is kind of irritating. Another weird issue with the software is that you can't swipe from side to side to flip pages in any document, which is very weird because when you want to scroll through those paper templates that we mentioned before, you can swipe up and down. However, like you would on a Kindle, you would just swipe from left to right if you want to change pages in a document, but you can't do that on this device. You have to use the bottom two buttons on either side, like at either corner of the bottom of the device, which is very strange. And there are also just some very, typical things that you would find in first generation software. It's kind of slow and clunky. Some of the controls for the pen might disappear if you're in portrait mode or landscape mode. The startup time can take 15 to 20 seconds just to get to the home page. So overall, I think Remarkable needs to take a little bit more time in their second generation software because the first generation one does have a lot of small but annoying issues. Another con to the Remarkable tablet is that it only supports PDF and EPUB files. So that might be enough for you if you're mostly looking at scholarly texts or things for college or school, things that are already saved and available to the public for free. But if you were expecting to get this device and be able to use all of your Kindle books on it, which are MOBI files, you won't be able to do that as it only supports PDF and EPUB files. So you'll have to find free or DRM-free PDF and EPUB files to use on this device. The final con that I have about the Remarkable tablet is the fact that the desktop and mobile app that accompany this device are really limited. At this time, they're mostly just used to get documents from your other digital spaces onto this device. You can't create a document on the desktop app or in the mobile app. You can pretty much just import things to that app and then get them on this device to actually read or work with. And like we said before, it only supports PDF and EPUB files, so if you were to have a screenshot from your phone that you wanted to mark up or take notes on, have in your notebook that you have on the Remarkable tablet, you can't do that unless it's a PDF or an EPUB file. So no image files, no anything like that. You can't use the mobile app to get that on to this device. So other than the fact that you can't, do anything other than move files around, there's no other reason to have those apps on any of your devices. So it's pretty limited, at least currently. So why would Remarkable choose e-ink for a device like this? For two real reasons. The first is that it's arguably the best display to read things on. That's why you see it in Kindles and other e-readers, because of the contrast, because of the good battery life, and because you can just kind of get a better reading experience than you could on an LCD display that you would see on any other type of tablet. It's easier on the eyes as well than that bright LCD or OLED display that you might get on another device. And the other reason Remarkable chose e-ink is because they're claiming it provides a more paper-like experience than those higher quality displays. So writing on an e-ink display, at least in my experience so far, it definitely feels more like paper than using something like an Apple Pencil on an iPad. It's, you're writing on essentially glass in that case, whereas this, with the e-ink, you get that sound almost like a pencil when you're writing on it, and the feedback is a little bit better with e-ink, and the contrast, like I said before, with reading, you can get really good contrast when you're sketching, when you're taking notes, different things like that. So what Remarkable is trying to do with this tablet is make it a kind of all-in-one document experience that you can read, write, and draw on one device. So those are the major pros and cons about the Remarkable e-ink tablet. Definitely go check out the full review on arstechnica.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to a Goody Reader comparison video. My name is Michael.
This is Peter.
We have here the Sony Digital Paper DPT-RP1 versus the Remarkable. So these are the two top
Of all the Sega properties still relevant this decade, none have had the staying power of Ryuga Gotoku, which translates to like a dragon. the series is more commonly known in the West as Yakuza. Compared to the wildly inconsistent Sonic franchise and the infrequent releases of Valkyria Chronicles sequels, Yakuza emerged as the most prolific series for the Japanese developer-publisher in its post-hardware era. If you count remasters, remakes, and spin-offs, some of which have never come out in the West, Ryuga Gotoku has averaged slightly more than one release every year since its introduction in 2005. As Yakuza, the series hits a milestone in 2018 as the story arc of its mainstay protagonist, Kazuma Kiryu, reaches its conclusion in Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. We thought this would be a fitting time to look back on this franchise in our History of video series. Yakuza was the brainchild of Sega veteran Toshihiro Nagoshi, the hard-as-nails director behind Daytona and Super Monkey Ball. He envisioned a gritty drama complemented by a sense of humanity in both its storytelling and characters. The game would revolve around the Japanese criminal underworld of the Yakuza, exploring the power struggles between rival groups as well as their tenuous relationships with foreign organizations. The Yakuza's fixation on their code of honor would play a huge part in the series' many stories. How its key characters adhere to or struggle with this code led to some of Yakuza's most compelling narrative moments. Development began as Project J, where Nagoshi assembled a team of Sega developers proficient in both arcade games like Virtua Fighter and Super Monkey Ball, as well as more story-driven console titles like Panzer Dragoon and Jet Set Radio. Nagoshi's team needed a setting befitting a Japanese mafia tale. They settled on Kabukicho, the red light district of Tokyo's Shinjuku ward, for their inspiration. Fictionally renamed as Kamurocho, this lively but modestly sized open world would become a staple location in every mainline Yakuza sequel. Much of the city's immense staying power is thanks to the similarities to its real-life counterpart. This sense of virtual tourism would permeate through all of the series' other locales. And like avid travelers revisiting Japan, fans, upon revisiting Kamurocho in sequels, would notice and appreciate both the clear and subtle changes to the landscape as storefronts disappear or relocate. The moment you start a new Yakuza and the initial exposition gives way to free roaming, you feel like you've returned to a theme park you haven't visited in years, wondering what has changed, whether that's a renovated batting center or a new selection of arcade titles at Club Sega. As the recurring locale, Kamurocho became a character itself, always reflective of its respective time periods. Banter among its locals provides color and context to Tokyo as it was in 2005, 2016, and any other year that the games have been set in. Adding further personality to this district are the myriad optional sub-stories triggered by Kamurocho's many NPCs, the subject matter of which ranges from lighthearted to absurdly funny. Last but not least, this district would be inextricably tied to Kazuma Kiryu, Yakuza's main protagonist.
Kazuma?
Ah, the Dragon of Dojima, as Kiryu is known among his Yakuza brethren.
Kiryu-chan, the Dragon of the Dojima family.
We're introduced to him in the first Yakuza as an up-and-coming member of the Tojo clan. His plans to one day start his own crime family are derailed early in the game when he takes the fall for the murder he didn't commit. This was done to protect his best friend, Akira Nishikiyama, as well as Kiryu's lifelong love interest, Yumi Sawamura. Within the first hour of playing Yakuza, our hero ages 10 years in prison, is expelled from the Tojo clan, and returns to a Kamurocho that's both familiar and foreign. Meanwhile, he meets Haruka, a 9-year-old orphan. She is somehow tied to Kiryu's former crime family, which is undergoing a tumultuous period of unrest due to the disappearance of 10 billion yen from the Tojo clan and the assassination of the Tojo chairman who was investigating the missing money. In a period where one-word game titles like Prey, Gun, and Bully were very much in vogue, Yakuza was effective in making Ryuga Gotoku marketable in the West. Yet, in retrospect, the continued focus on Kiryu's personal journey makes this title inadequate. Here we find a hero who, in his youth, was drawn to the gangster lifestyle, yet has been spending the bulk of his adulthood trying to leave it. From the get-go, we learned that his drive to protect those he loves supersedes any kind of Yakuza code of honor. This gets more complicated due to the father-daughter relationship he quickly forms with Haruka, who stays inextricably tied to Kiryu for the rest of the series. This bond is all the more strengthened by their common upbringings as orphans.
I knew he was hungry. I told you.
You said you lived in an orphanage.
Yeah,
Is your mother really in this city?
maybe. That's what her letter said. But I've never even met her.
Yakuza would also introduce Goro Majima,
Long time no see, Kazuma-chan.
a fan-favorite character who would be more beloved than even Kiryu to some. His psychotic tendencies are only overshadowed by his flamboyant charisma, attributes that have only been amplified in future appearances.
This is the part where you're supposed to laugh! Laugh, you stupid motherfucker!
Cut it out.
Kiryu's relationship to Goro, plus other recurring characters, like the detective-turned-journalist Makoto Date, elevates a growing ensemble cast that becomes as memorable as any as you'll find in Dragon Age or Gears of War. And with the announcement of the English voice cast, you could not have picked a better fit than Joker veteran Mark Hamill as the maniacal Goro.
Kazuma-chan. Like always, you're as tough as nails.
Another notable actor was Michael Madsen, whose work on gangster films like Reservoir Dogs and The Getaway made him a natural fit for a brute like Futoshi Shimano, one of the game's major bosses.
Yes, sir. Since I'm in a good mood today, I'll just take 2 fingers from you.
Eliza Dushku also proved a match for Yumi. It was a clear message from Sega of America of their well-intentioned efforts to introduce Ryuga Gotoku to the West. That said, the localization came with a forced hard edge, featuring more swearing and gangster posturing than the Japanese version. As if to fully own the Yakuza name, this English script played up the game's criminal element more than what the original writers intended.
Kazuma-san, these guys are fools! Shut the fuck up, bitch!
I don't believe this shit. A dumb fuck who took out his own boss, sitting there ogling some run-down stripper. You're a disgrace to all Yakuza!
As Sega of America was localizing Yakuza, fans in Japan were treated to the series' first spin-off, a film by the prolific and renowned director Takashi Miike, as well as a shorter prologue film. These films were fitting tie-ins to a game with strong cinematic qualities. The Yakuza games' filmic storytelling would only get better as the series made its way to the PlayStation 3 and 4 consoles, rendering the idea of additional film adaptations obsolete. These later games would go on to use actors familiar to Japanese audiences, like Riki Takeuchi, Hitoshi Ozawa, and even New Japan Pro Wrestling stars playing as themselves. This would culminate in Yakuza 6 with the casting of one of the country's biggest celebrities, Beat Takeshi Kitano, who has directed and starred in his share of gangster films. Capitalizing on Yakuza's success, a sequel naturally followed. Whether it was a financial decision or an attempt to provide a more authentic experience, Yakuza 2 was released in the West with no English voice acting, preserving the original Japanese audio. Whereas the main conflict among the Yakuza in the first game was from within the Tojo clan, Yakuza 2 explored their struggles in maintaining peace with outside organizations, not just with other clans in Japan, but also a crime group from Korea.
相手は関西門か。いや、立ちの悪い外国人だそうです。そうか。
It's a dispute that takes part of the story to Osaka, particularly the tourist magnet of Dotonbori, now fictionalized as Sotenbori. It also continues to portray Kiryu as the reluctant gangster who doesn't hesitate to take the fight to his aggressors when his loved ones are threatened. He exhibits shades of Michael Corleone, though the Godfather never had someone as loving and kind-hearted as Haruka to keep him grounded. Wanting to get out but only to be pulled back in is a dilemma Kiryu faces time and time again, all the way to Yakuza 6. While this game's repetitiveness is amusing, it's never to the detriment of each game's respective story. After all, it's satisfying to see Kiryu take out his frustrations on his inability to escape his Yakuza roots by beating up countless gangsters in fine-tailored suits. All he wants to do is live out the rest of his life with Haruka and the orphans they watch over in Sunshine Orphanage, which the two establish in Okinawa. And given all the peacemaking Kiryu does with his fists, Sega would continue to refine the series' melee and fisticuff-focused combat sequel after sequel. It never quite achieves the classification as a 3D successor to classic beat-em-ups like Double Dragon and Streets of Rage. Minor improvements to fighting would come with each subsequent release, accompanied by violent and often amusing finishing blows, like the memorable Tiger Punch in Yakuza 2. In 2008, an Asia-only spin-off followed. Set during the dawn of Japan's Edo period, Ryuga Gotoku Kenzan followed a reimagined Kiryu as Kazumanosuke Kiryu, whose real identity is the famous swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. Once again tied by fate to Haruka, Kiryu reluctantly agrees to help this Edo period version of the young woman by assassinating an imposter posing as Musashi. Sega would eventually explore the twilight of the Edo period 200 years later in the Japan-only Ryuga Gotoku Ishin in 2014 for the PlayStation 4. It takes creative liberties with two real historical figures of the time. Sega reimagined two samurai, Ryoma Sakamoto and Hajime Saito, as the same person with Kiryu's personality, taking on a dual identity as they survived this era of unrest as the reign of the Tokugawa shogunate ended. With Yakuza 3 in 2010, Sega was still trying to find the series' footing in the West, the least of its problems being its poorly conceived box art. Citing time constraints and the presumption that some sections wouldn't resonate with audiences outside of Japan, Sega of America released an incomplete version of Yakuza 3 in the West. The most notable omissions were the hostess clubs and the historical trivia quizzes. But this was 2010. You could argue that a fascination with the peculiarities of Japanese culture had long since permeated through many areas of gaming fandom in the West. The backlash on forums and in social media sent the message to Sega of America that fans want to be immersed in this culture, but Sega have since learned their lesson. Despite the omissions, Yakuza 3 was still a fine first entry for the series on the PlayStation 3 in the West. Kiryu's orphanage is under threat of demolishment by the government, and his efforts to save it gets him embroiled in the arms smuggling underworld, attracting even the attention of the CIA. Even beyond the main story, Yakuza 3 shows tremendous heart, with Haruka's trust being the most memorable optional mission. Imagine the first moments of bonding with Haruka in the first Yakuza, and stretching that out to an entire game. Impressing her and building trust takes more than just buying her stuff and taking her to restaurants. She has very specific scoring expectations when you're doing even the most mundane activities like baseball. Miss the mark, and it's time and money wasted. Yes. Sega's plan to regain the consumer's trust began with Yakuza 4. Received well by both fans and critics, this sequel gave an idea of what a post-Kiryu Yakuza would be like in a big way. In fact, the Dragon of Dojima doesn't appear in the game's first 10 hours. The series' mainstay would share the stage with 3 other playable characters: Masayoshi Tanimura, Shun Akiyama, and Taiga Seijima. Their sections collectively did more than just help double the playtime over Yakuza 3. How their diverse backgrounds and predicaments, intertwined with Kiryu's, offered the same compelling kind of suspense and intrigue found in the previous games, while adding a great deal of lore to the series overall. Equally significant are the various game modes exclusive to each character. Akiyama manages a hostess club not unlike the version cut from Yakuza 3's English version. The player is tasked with winning fighting tournaments in Seijima's section, and Tanimura keeps the peace in Kamurocho by listening in on police radio reports and catching crime perpetrators. This expanded cast doesn't quite equate to a 4 Yakuza games in one playthrough, but it still was the biggest Yakuza game yet. Back in Japan, fans were treated to another spin-off, Kuroyo Ryuga Gotoku Shinsho, curiously released on the then 6-year-old PlayStation Portable handheld. While not as feature-rich as any of the console games, this adventure, starring an aimless youth named Tatsuya, was recognized for its customable fighting system. It also offered its share of minigames, including the batting center and hostess clubs. A sequel would follow 2 years later, once again on the PSP. Kuroyo 2 Ryuga Gotoku Ashura Hen preserved the previous game's memorable fighting gameplay and was notable for having an involving mahjong minigame. What came next to the West capitalized on the rising popularity of zombie games. Yakuza Dead Souls marked the first and only time to date that a Yakuza spin-off has been translated to English. As a zombie game, the emphasis on gunplay proved to be its weakest feature, not too surprising for a franchise more known for its melee combat and brawling. Still, it proved to be more than a novel, non-canonical break from the series' hard-boiled storylines. Just seeing these tough Japanese gangsters deal with the undead made for great comedy. Dead Souls came out at a time when Sega's American presence was once again struggling to adapt to a rapidly changing and competitive market. So much so that they had to secure support from Sony to bring Yakuza 5 to the West, 3 years after its release in Japan. One of the caveats to bringing the game overseas involved foregoing the physical disc version and making it a PlayStation Store exclusive. It's a fiscally prudent approach that publishers like Bandai Namco and Koei Tecmo have practiced for many of their games in recent years. Not to mess with a good thing, Yakuza 5 continued with the multi-character design of 4. Along with the return of Kiryu, Akiyama, and Seijima, there's newcomer Tatsuo Shinada, a former baseball pro whose career was cut short by a gambling scandal. Yet the fifth and most notable playable character is Haruka, whose idol singing career resulted in many first-time gameplay modes for Yakuza. In a series that has featured karaoke minigames, Haruka's idol rhythm action sections were a natural fit. Her idol aspirations come with a price, though. Given his known crime history, Kiryu had to disassociate himself from Haruka and the Sunshine Orphanage as part of her signing agreement. That's why we meet Kiryu as Suzuki Taichi, a taxi driver living in Fuoka at the start of the game. Like Yakuza 4, all the playable character storylines are connected by fate. Making progress in the game to discover how their respective quandaries are woven together is part of the draw. While Kamurocho was a setting that has always been one of the series' constants, every mainline sequel has expanded the window into modern Japanese urbanity, as well as the occasional glimpse into more rural settings. Whereas Yakuza 4 slightly expanded Kamurocho, Yakuza 5 had a different city for each of the 5 characters. It's no surprise that Yakuza 5 has been described by its developers as the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas of the series. Sega would take the series to the PlayStation 4 in a big way with both Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami in the West in 2017. It made for a fitting pair, Yakuza 0 being a prequel to the original Yakuza, and Kiwami being the remake of that very same first game. As the first installment to capitalize on the console's video sharing feature, Yakuza 0 served as the series' long overdue coming out party. Bolstered by a new yet experienced localization team, Yakuza 0 in some ways felt like a reboot in regards to how the series would be treated in the West from this point on. This new group would even convince Sega Japan to lift the game's video sharing restriction, which is common with many Japanese developed games. Much of its more absurd optional content lent well to video-friendly social media platforms like Twitter. Pulling in intrigued gamers is easy when you can show Kiryu defending a Michael Jackson doppelganger in an escort mission. Yet the clip that won over even more newcomers on social media was the now infamous Nugget scene. If you were skilled enough at the bowling minigame, you had the chance to recruit a chicken named Nugget to help manage your real estate portfolio. Yes, there's a commercial property minigame, a perfect fit for a game set in 1988 Japan. This nostalgic representation of Tokyo and Osaka in the 1980s, right down to the romantic yellow hue emanating from nighttime streetlights, is one of the many reasons why Yakuza 0 is considered a series high point. While the presence of contemporary bikini models in arcade games show that this isn't a wholly authentic depiction, the surroundings and the story nonetheless offer a glimpse of Japan's last halcyonic period before its economic bubble burst. Moreover, the recurring appearances of the Club Sega arcades is both a celebration of the company's coin-op heritage and recognition of a bygone era.
Get ready.
Yakuza 0 gives equal screen time to Kiryu and the game's other playable character, Goro Majima. A prequel focusing on the birth of the Dragon of Dojima within the Tojo clan is eye-opening enough. Witnessing Goro's origin tale unfold is an entertaining look at his charming lunacy. Sega would double down on his twisted attachment to Kiryu with some substantial retconning in the remake of the original game, Yakuza Kiwami. Mainline Yakuza games have progressively improved its side missions, but Yakuza 0 took these diversions to another absurdist level. These often comedic sub-stories underscore the duality of the series. Its fans can get engrossed in its melodramatic and serious story events, while also relishing in the game's countless lighthearted moments. The Yakuza faithful know that there's nothing wrong with spending an hour fishing as they ignore the sense of urgency of the next story objective. saving a damsel or an informant will have to wait. Kiryu needs his shark fix. Before jumping from Yakuza 0 to witness the end of Kiryu's arc in Yakuza 6, Sega took us back to the beginning. Yakuza Kiwami isn't your typical fresh coat of paint remaster. This was a full-on remake that struck a fine balance between expanding the original game's comparatively sparse side content with a strict faithfulness to the narrative. Yakuza fans with videographic memories will recognize practically all the cinematics, shot for shot, right down to the camera angles, all with new visuals. This attention to detail is just one of the many layers of fan service Kiwami delivers. Keen eyes will notice subtle story callbacks to Yakuza 0 and appreciate the repurposing of the 3 fighting styles from that prequel, on top of a modified version of Kiryu's original moveset. And for better or worse, Kiwami alters Goro's role by accentuating the more endearing and psychotic aspects of his personality from Yakuza 0. As the conclusion to Kiryu's story arc, Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, is a more focused and intimate story compared to the last few games. As a throwback to the PlayStation 2 games, the Dragon of Dojima, now 48 years old in 2016, is the only playable character, a marked contrast over the robust 5-sum of Yakuza 5. In addition, his moveset does away with the previous game's multiple fighting styles in favor of a single, refined, but comprehensive set of skills. While the optional missions and minigames aren't as plentiful as prior Yakuzas, what it does have are exceedingly involved. That includes underwater fishing with a spear gun, running your own gang, and even learning the fine art of conversing in a bar.
そこはもう少しこだわってて欲しかったわ。
And this swan song is peppered with notable quality of life improvements, like the ability to pin waypoints on the map, auto-saving, limited load times, and full voice acting in every conversation. Lastly, Yakuza 6 features one of the most detailed and involving small towns in the series, Onomichi, a port town in Hiroshima. Yakuza 6's story sends Kiryu back and forth between Kamurocho and Onomichi as he deals with the events that were set in motion at the end of Yakuza 5, particularly related to Haruka's idol career. Just as Yakuza 0 offered a view of urban Japan in the late 1980s, Yakuza 6 portrays Japanese gangsters as a dying breed, affected by the foreign influence of crime organizations from both Korea and China.
でも今は違う。でかい構想のおかげで登場界のヤクザの価値は喧嘩の強さになった。
Kiryu's dealings with Yakuza in Onomichi provide yet another glimpse of organized crime in another region of Japan. With this new batch of colorful characters, from the high-strung Nagumo Tsuyoshi to the intimidating Toru Hirose, the latter played by Beat Takeshi, it's easy to fantasize a Yakuza spin-off based primarily in this charming Japanese port town. One of the strengths of this franchise is that you can name a dozen existing characters who can potentially be the main protagonist in their own game. 7 mainline games is a lot for even someone as beloved as Kazuma Kiryu, and Sega chose the Song of Life subtitle to convey both symmetry and the circular beauty of life. As much as this series is about the Japanese crime underworld, it is also the story of a man's journey. In an entertainment medium where character-driven franchises can go too long or lay dormant indefinitely, it's an immense rare gift to witness the conclusive end to a multi-game story arc of a protagonist as loved and admired as Kazuma Kiryu, told over 3 console generations and 2 decades. You can't name more than a dozen other game heroes who are fortunate enough to have this kind of send-off. Solid Snake, Big Boss, Ezio Auditore, Commander Shepard, and Nathan Drake. But who else? Yakuza fans are incredibly lucky to have this sense of closure. Yakuza 6 marks an end, but it's also a new beginning for the franchise. For as visually impressive as Yakuza 0 and Kiwami were, these games were built for both the PlayStation 3 and 4, and like all games before it, reiterated on design foundations that go all the way back to the very first game in the series. Yakuza 6 is the first game to run on the new Dragon engine, with the Kiwami remake of Yakuza 2 being the second. We hold out hope that the positive reception of the recent games in the West will encourage Sega to make an English translation of Yakuza Kiwami 2 a reality. At least in Japan, 2018 is primed to be a busy year for Sega and Ryuga Gotoku. Ryuga Gotoku Online is a microtransaction-driven free-to-play Windows and mobile game designed to tee up the next console game, aptly titled Shin Ryuga Gotoku. In this context, Shin means new. Powered by the Yakuza 6 engine, Shin Ryuga Gotoku's playable protagonist is newcomer Ichiban Kazuga, a 40-year-old ex-con trying to make sense of Kamurocho in 2018 and the surprising state of the Tojo clan.
一番か。面白いやつだな。しぶといやつだな。てめえ、ぶっ殺した！
This story arc isn't the only new territory Ryuga Gotoku is exploring.
お前はもう死んでいる。
俺なんで俺こんな格好に。おいお前何したんだ。
State of the Tojo clan.
一番か。面白いやつだな。しぶといやつだな。てめえ、ぶっ殺した！
This story arc isn't the only new territory Ryuga Gotoku is exploring.
お前はもう死んでいる。
俺なんで俺こんな格好に。おいお前何したんだ。
In a move reminiscent of Koei Tecmo's Mosu spin-offs, the team behind Yakuza is developing Hokuto ga Gotoku, an adventure brawler based on Hokuto no Ken, or Fist of the North Star as it's known in English markets. There's no word yet on whether any of these games will make their journey to the West, but it's clear that gaming's biggest niche franchise is ready to enter its next era.
お前はもう死んでいる。
As with most any narrative-driven adventure game series, Yakuza is best appreciated when playing through all the releases in story order. Between the collective playtime of over 200 hours, experiencing the complete Kiryu saga can be a daunting task. To all you ambitious newcomers, getting Yakuza 0 to 6 isn't anything the PlayStation Store and eBay can't take care of. Yet the beauty of these games is that they can each be appreciated on their own. Much thanks to their mostly self-contained plots, the wealth of optional story missions and minigames, and succinct summaries of the game's other stories. Whatever your familiarity, we hope you appreciated this look at Yakuza, a one-of-a-kind series that consistently and prolifically celebrates modern Japanese urbanity through the viewpoint of a gangster with a heart of gold.
Hey everybody, it's John Luke here, your regular History of host. With this episode being the first History of for 2018, I thought I'd give you all a little update. The most obvious is the Megami Tensei series is a role-playing franchise from Japanese studio Atlus. It's best known for its strange mix of the real world with the occult. In a Megami Tensei game, you can be a 1930s detective who summons demons, or a resurrected teen in a post-apocalyptic Tokyo. There has been a huge amount of games over the franchise's 30 years, from traditional JRPGs, online MMOs, and even children's card games. But by far the biggest and most popular spin-off of Megami Tensei is Persona. Despite always having bizarre plots involving demons, schools turning into labyrinths, and sticking your head inside a TV, Persona is a series that's grounded itself with believable characters who have very relatable problems. The way these games realistically portray the lives of Japanese high school students, despite its more fantastical elements, is a huge draw for many of its players. With Persona 5 finally here, it's worth taking the time to look back on this beloved series. This is the history of Persona. Persona's roots actually come from another series spin-off, Shin Megami Tensei If, which was released in Japan only in 1994 for the Super Famicom. If is a game about a high school student whose school becomes infested with demons. It was a well-received game, in particular for its high school setting, and prompted Atlus to begin work on a sub-series specifically focusing on young adults. The project was led by producer Koji Okada, who had worked on a number of Megami Tensei titles. Character designer was Kazuma Kaneko, co-founder of Atlus, whose work on practically every mainline Megami Tensei game has made his style synonymous with the series. Newcomer Satomi Tadashi came in as writer. The game was composed by multiple people, notably Shoji Meguro, who has since worked on almost every Persona game. The game, Megami Ibunroku Persona, which translates to Goddess's Odyssey Persona, was released on the PlayStation in Japan on September 20th, 1996, and North America that November under the name Revelations Persona. The story starts with a protagonist and his schoolmates all playing a superstitious fortune-telling game called Persona. This causes them to enter the realm of the deity Philemon, who grants them the power of Persona, which is a physical manifestation of their psyche that can punch demons. Just in time too, because shortly after their town is invaded by demons and it's up to the group to save everyone. A lot of the fun comes in the setting. Dungeons take place in real-world locations like hospitals and police stations. The original Persona is also the introduction of the Velvet Room, a special room that is located between consciousness and subconsciousness. The room serves as a place for persona management and other needs. It's hosted by Igor, and he and his Velvet Room serve as a connecting thread to the whole series, showing up in every game. Story locations take place in an isometric view, but the game's dungeons are in first person, giving them a maze-like quality. Combat is where the personas come into play. Each persona has different magical skills for attack and healing, and characters can level up, swap out, and gain new personas. Another aspect of combat is communicating with the demons, a Megami Tensei staple. If you give the correct emotional response, you can convince them to flee or give you items. Revelations Persona is also the only game in the series to have a specific move for guns. I'll be honest with you, I think this game's plot and characters are just okay. All of the character traits revolve around internal conflicts and hiding their true selves, which absolutely is a reoccurring theme for this series. There's also some neat stuff with the character Maki and her relationship to why everything's happening, which is a fun twist. But I just don't have the love for these characters the way I do with the later games. Revelations Persona was the first role-playing entry in the Megami Tensei series to see a Western release, and unfortunately it is also a prime example of bad 90s localization. All of the references to the game taking place in Japan were removed, and many of the personas were given new names. Every character was also renamed, as well as several changes to characters' appearances. I'm not gonna touch that. For reasons never officially stated, one of the game's alternate story routes, the Snow Queen quest, was removed. The game absolutely has its charms though. The staff put themselves in the game as minor characters, which is a lot of fun. The best example being the writer Satomi Tatashi's name on the pharmacy, which has its own jingle. When translated, the lyrics are telling you which items cure what ailments. In general, the music in this game is pretty great. Off the success of Persona 4, a port of the original came to the PlayStation Portable in 2009, named Shin Megami Tensei Persona. Directed by the game's original composer, Shoji Meguro, the port featured updated music